Home the gold.
He could be too far. No, he's kicking. Oh, what a catch!
Puts a spicy forehand out in front of Naomi Morcilla.
Wu for the win. Team Canada. Garrett Wu!
Santos with the layout grab.
Oh, that fantastic grab. The claws of Chaffer.
Canada just became the world champions.
Yo, Canada and the rest of the world. You're listening to the Huckin podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Theo Wan from Toronto, Ontario.
And I'm Danie Proby from Vancouver, BC. And together we make your coast-to-coast guide to all things Canadian Ultimate. And it's kind of mostly a BC podcast today, but I know you've got some AUDL news. I know you've got some news coming out of Quebec too, but I think I'm going to be the star of the show. Lots of stuff happening in BC. It's pretty great over here. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I've been to BC once, Danie, to Victoria. Have not actually been to Vancouver, so
Wow.
one day I need to make the trip over. And I know in Vancouver, people were talking about your picks last week, World Games picks,
Yeah.
and they were giving you some feedback. So why don't you share what you heard, and then I'll share what I heard on the Toronto end of things.
Yeah, some people didn't necessarily agree with some of my younger, as you like to say, spicier picks. And I like that. Like, I intentionally went with some picks that were maybe a little bit dark horse, I guess. And I've had some other people come up to me and tell me that they were like really proud or really excited about some of my picks because maybe they've worked with those athletes or they train them or something like that. So I won't name names, but I've gotten a little bit of a mix of all the things. And I mean, haters gonna hate, lovers gonna love. It's all good. I mean, I make my picks and I stand by them. And if I'm wrong, I'm willing to die on that hill. How about you?
To be honest, the feedback I've gotten is pretty positive, especially from, a couple players I selected or one of the players I selected. So they were like,
Of course.
"Yo, you gave me a shout out like on the podcast. Let's go." And I was talking to one Alec Arsenault before one of the games this weekend and talking about how we both picked him. And he talked about how, he's not a household name yet, but hoping with the tryouts and how that goes that he will be a household name because he's uber athletic. So I'm going to give an extra shout out to Alec today and hoping he can make some noise. He did make the 2020 Open team, so he was already heading into that direction. But yeah, people were saying, Theo, you got to make the non-safe picks. You got to just go off the board sometimes because people want to hear that. They don't want to just hear the safe picks. So that's what we did. But guess what? In the audience, you have a chance to make your own picks. Hit up our Instagram and click the link in the bio. Danie made an awesome form. You can check it out and you can make your picks and you can see if you can beat us and other people, the Huckin audience. Make sure you do that this week.
We're seeing a lot of the choices rolling in, and I'm definitely like creeping the Google form, and I'm very curious all the people that are picking. And when you pick the same people I pick, I'm like, yo, we homies now. So get in there, put on your picks. You got nothing to lose and some sick merch to gain. So get on it. Theo, I think we don't need to get to know each other, right? I feel like we know each other well enough. And there's a lot of news to be had. And we've got Daisy and Elsa on the podcast later. So I think we should just move on, right? You feeling good?
Yeah, let's just hit the news. I will say there's a couple athletes who are in the applicant pool who did put in their responses. And it was kind of cool to see that they didn't actually pick themselves. I don't know if that's cool. Maybe they're just being honest, but they didn't pick themselves. We're not going to say who, obviously. But pretty cool that they were honest and made some picks. So that's a cool shout out there. But let's go news. We're going to dance in the news right now.
We now have breaking news.
So as promised, it's a BC takeover for the first good chunk of this news section. Lots of stuff happening. We're going to start off with adult mixed. So there was a surprise tournament or play day or something that happened on Saturday that I didn't even know about until later that night when I was seeing stuff coming through on social media. It's a little bit out to lunch, but there was quite a few teams there. There's Happy Campers came from the island. We had TT/Forever Young, kind of a TT and TT's Masters team kind of played together, I believe. Fable and Red Flag. If I missed any teams, I'm really sorry, but I think it was those squads. And Red Flag ended up coming out on top, which isn't necessarily a surprise to you or I. Like, we have them highly rated in everything that we've done, but there were some really close games and some awesome things that were happening along the way. And I've heard from representatives from, I think, all the teams now. And yeah, it's exciting stuff. So TT, they only are sending, like, they're not sending their entire roster to UCI. So I think that they and Forever Young created a team of people that are going to UCI. So they didn't necessarily have chemistry, but at least those people were kind of working together. So I think it is my understanding that maybe they struggled initially a little bit. And so they lost against Red Flag and Fable, but then they ended up being able to beat Happy Campers on Universe. And then they also beat Fable the second time they played them. So they were able to obviously find some chemistry there, which we love to hear. And Happy Campers, they're one of my favorite teams out there. I heard from Clayton Howlett, their captain / coach / head goon of their team. And
Head goon, I like it.
Head goon. So he had some nice things to say about all the teams. He said Fable was coming out hot, lots of speed, lots of effort, supportive energy. And they said that they came out really flat. So that was a tough game for them against Fable. And then when they played against Red Flag, same thing. Red Flag is a really fast team, and Happy Camper said that they were not really able to keep up with the longevity of the game. Like, there was some trading happening, but every once in a while, Red Flag would just get an extra break and it would kind of build over time. So Red Flag ended up winning, and then Happy Campers ended up beating Forever Young. And yeah, in the final, somehow they ended up making it to the final after going 1-2. They were in a 3-way tie and won. Yeah. And so they ended up playing Red Flag again. And it was tied at 4s. I got some insider scoop that Peter Yu from Red Flag called a timeout and had some inspirational words for Red Flag. And the final score was 15-4.
What?
Yeah.
Interesting. Peter Yu, you're in the World Games applicant pool, so that maybe you just wanted to boost your profile for it because you're calling some inspirational words and your team, goes on a huge run. So
yeah. One other fun note is that in the game against from Happy Campers and Red Flag, Zell Mott ended up getting carded for initiating contact with Clayton while he was trying to pop in the zone or something like that. Clayton didn't say anything about it, but the observer apparently went over and gave her a TMF. And so if you check out her Instagram, you can see Clayton and Zell in a picture with the blue card or something. It's good times. So I just gave you a lot of information about these teams. I think the tightest score for Red Flag in my research was 11-4 potentially.
7-point difference. Wow.
Yeah. And so I think that what does that tell you about UCI?
Well, I mean, a couple of things it tells me is that Red Flag is very good. So you got to really watch out for them.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we've noted is Red Flag potentially going to the States, but I think that's changed. Is that correct?
Yeah, they're no longer going to the States.
So that's unfortunate for them. But, TT and Fable are teams that are going to UCI, but are they kind of I don't know too much of the BC mixed scene, so maybe, Danie, you can talk a little bit about that. But are TT and Fable kind of feeder teams at all? Is there a system in place, or are they kind of all independent teams, or what's happening there?
Yeah, there's definitely not a system, and there's no feeder teams in mixed. There used to be Mola Mola, which was a feeder team for Fable, but they're definitely very unique styles, unique leadership, unique identities completely. So you're either a TT person or you're a Fable person. There isn't a lot of people kind of moving between those three teams. Yeah. And so TT seems like it's more like a core group of friends that have been playing together for a long time. And Fable does more traditional tryouts, I believe. But I think that the core of their team has also stayed the same for a long time. So yeah, it's always a fun battle to see the mixed teams in Vancouver. There's a lot of parity. So it's good times. And do you have anything else to kind of comment on that, on mixed specifically in BC? I know it's kind of out of your wheelhouse, but
I can make it in my wheelhouse now, so that's okay. But one of my questions is Red Flag going to get some other competition here? I'm just thinking, with the easy defeats it looks like for them, especially in the finals 15-4, going on that big run, are there teams that you think they could warm up against? I can't think of a team even in Alberta maybe they can go all the way to Winnipeg to play PBHG or something. But that might be an issue that a team like Union might not face because they're going to have competition within the province, or even if they wanted to, let's say, play a one day with some Quebec teams or something like that. But that's something maybe to think about if you're a Red Flag fan in the audience, is how are they going to get some much needed competition before the big tournament?
Yeah. I mean, they can get good competition at their own practices. That's something we've been saying as Traffic too, that like our best competition is us, and it is hard to kind of simulate how it feels to be in a game. So unless they get like furious Traffic players to create a mixed team to scrimmage against, I don't really see them getting that kind of tight game mentality unless they can kind of create that at practices. So the long answer is no.
That's okay. But Danny, I know you got some juniors results as well, right? Because it's not just the open, or excuse me, the mixed division that was happening, but there's junior open, junior girls. So why don't you talk about that right now?
Yeah, so I was coaching all weekend again. So it was all the same teams, I think, in both divisions that were in the same juniors tournament in July. And the finalists in the juniors bracket was Mischief, number 1 for girls, Valkyrie, number 2, and Rain for number 3. Now, it was definitely warm, lots of cramping happening, and I think some of the final games ended in sort of a forfeit. Like I know the 3-4 game ended in a forfeit. We played out our 5-6 game, and it was super fun. We were playing Helios, which is a team from Kamloops, and at the last point, we had everybody come on. We had half of each team switch so that they were kind of mingling with each other, and we played interception rules. So if you catch it on defense, you can run with it until you're tagged. It was pretty awesome. And
that is fun.
The same thing as the first tournament where Mischief was just kind of rolling through everybody. There was at least one game that I think that the other team scored 6 points on them, which was way more than the first tournament. So good for y'all. And there was one game that I do want to shout out. It was a universe point game, and we were playing our game on our field, and we looked over and we just like, you know, those games like where you know something epic just happened and you hear it and you kind of wish that you could have been like a fly on the wall or like a little birdie watching what was happening. But I ended up hearing from the coach, as a good friend of mine, and it was Valkyrie versus Eclipse, and it was universe point, and Martina Rossi ended up catching this game-winning sky goal, and it was brought to you by Sherry Credo, who got a hand block right on the end zone line. It was like very, very exciting. Everyone's rushing the fields. I think the boys team was there. It was like, it felt like a CUC moment. So I just thought it deserved a special shout out. On the boys side, let's see here. We ended up with Eclipse and Mischief in the final, which isn't a surprise to anybody. So Eclipse ended up taking over Rain. They reigned over Rain, I guess, in semis. And then, thank you. And Mischief beat a Helios also in the semis. And Helios, again, is the team that's from Kamloops. So, yeah, it felt like there's a little bit less parity on the guys' side. It was like pretty clear what two teams are going to be in the finals. So, besides Eclipse, Eclipse beat everyone. So, Eclipse is all 2020 and 2021 grads. So they put all of those players onto one team. So first year university students and grade 12. So they kind of steamrolled everyone. They ended up playing a game at the end of coaches, like / pickups to like 5 or 6. That's a good question. They ended up saying last point wins. And it was like the coaches. So I think it was close. And the coach / pickup team was pulling and they ended up scoring. So the coach / pickup team technically won. Yes. That's my news of juniors. It was really fun. I missed Ultimate so much. I'm very tired though. It takes a lot of energy to coach juniors.
I think it just takes a lot of energy to coach in general. So kudos to you for doing so over the weekend. Yeah. But one thing I want to note is Eclipse in the boys side, dominating like you said, but then it was Mischief. I'm always trying to figure out the branding. I'm all about the brand, keeping our brand tight, with our logo and stuff on merch. So in terms of branding, Eclipse won in the boys' side, but then Eclipse came, what was it? Let me take a look at the results here. Fourth. So is Eclipse not the top team on the girls' side then this year in Vancouver? Is it actually Mischief? Is that right?
So I explained this on the last pod, but how it's working is they put all the 2020 and 2021 grads on Eclipse. And so they did that on the men's side, but there weren't enough 2021 grads on the women's side to make a team. And so they put all the 2021 grads and then anyone that didn't make mischief on Eclipse.
Okay.
I believe that's how it worked.
Yeah.
So basically, both of the mischief teams are going to be the Eclipses of next year. So that was the reason. So the Eclipses of this year were good teams, but it's not the same. Like they didn't take all the top players. So if you're a good grade 10 or 11 player, you were on mischief. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, that settles it. But folks, you're like, hey, we're moving eastward. We're not yet because there's more BC news. So
I know.
why don't you share more? Especially this is now adult division. Let's go.
Back to adults. So Furious had their training camp this weekend. They played some disc golf. They were doing lots of scrimmages and practicing. They were in Whistler. But then I got some inside scoop from my living room where Furious is no longer going to be competing in the USA series anymore. And so that makes Traffic as the lone team, I believe, unless Mephisto is, but the lone team that's going to be competing in USA Ultimate stuff. So we're booking our flights to regionals. Like we're going, it's happening. So Furious is looking to potentially go to UCI early to maybe scrimmage against Mephisto, maybe strike, that kind of thing. And maybe Mephisto will be coming west. Like they're going to try and find ways to get games this year, even though they're not playing in the States.
Interesting. I know we had talked about it last week about Sixers not going and GOAT. And so Union had already said they weren't going pretty early as well. So I was really excited to see Red Flag, honestly, because we were talking about how a mixed team could potentially make some noise and try to get a bit in the Northwest region for Red Flag, but they're not going either. So it sounds like Traffic. And I know Mephisto was pretty adamant on going. Speaking to Coach Hayduk a long time, this was like maybe a few weeks ago, so maybe that has changed. Don't want to quote him on that. So maybe we need an update from them as well. But it sounds like Traffic, you're one of the only teams going. How does it feel? Like you're almost like the guinea pig of sorts. We're all just saying, hey, Traffic, you go and let us know how the experience is, and we'll watch from afar, closely, but from afar.
Yeah, it's been weird because we're kind of seeing on social media all these teams are playing tournaments, like Schwa and Riot and Underground and Fury were all at a tournament, and we're like, crap, like we haven't played like a real tournament in so long, and we're like, oh, they're going to be so far ahead of us. But we're looking at all these rosters coming out. I listened to Deep Look. Like some of these rosters are decimated. A lot of Riot left to go play mixed. Like a lot of their top players are playing mixtape, and then there's another mixed team coming out of the Northwest, and I forget what it's called. But yeah, so like I feel like optimistic about our chance at the regionals and making it to San Diego for nationals. So it's exciting. That's all. It's just exciting.
More BC news, right? Is there more?
Yeah, there's one more. There's just
one
more thing. So this will take me 2 seconds, but BC Ultimate, I'm also on the board for BC Ultimate. We created a program, which is an under 24 high performance development program. And so what that is aiming to do is to basically, Team Canada coaches were noticing that there was a gap in base athleticism and physical literacy of the athletes that were making it to the national programs or making it through prospect camps. So that program it's free for the athletes. They show up, they get all of this sprint training, change of direction training, all these like plyometrics, and we advance throwing skills. We do scrimmages and stuff with high level coaches. And we are finally starting that back up again at the beginning of September on Tuesday night. So look forward to that. I think other provinces should do the same. It would make such a big difference for our nation's national teams. Speaking of national teams, you have an announcement about some exciting coach selections from the East.
Yeah, big kudos, congratulations. We're not going to say shout out. We're going to say congratulations. Eric Hunter, who's based in Ottawa now, but I know he's a familiar name for those in BC listening. So
Max.
Eric Hunter, or Max as he's known. I know he's played for many Vancouver teams. And Rob Grundy, who's coached Toro and been a mainstay in the Toronto juniors scene coaching. So congratulations to both of you joining Alex Lamb, who's been on one of our podcasts. You can check that out if you do so desire. And we didn't have the coaches picked at that time of the podcast, but now we do. So he's got some support, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and on the note of U20, there was the U20 prospect camp happened in Winnipeg on Sunday, and I heard from Coach William Conrad that everyone looked really athletic, that people were working really hard, and he seems really optimistic to see what happens at tryouts in the winter. So prospect camps are starting to happen. I know Winnipeg was definitely a lot earlier than the other 3 locations, but we're going to be hearing about those prospect camps within the next couple weeks as well. So if you are a U20 athlete and you're thinking about trying out, apply for the prospect camp, or register rather. It is so worth it. And I look forward to seeing you on the field.
Yeah, you really have nothing to lose. We said it last time. We're going to say it again. Go to the camps, get experience. Do you get a jersey as well, like a penny? I've seen that penny around in Ontario.
I don't want to say that they do. They usually do.
Oh.
I think that's part of it, but I don't want to confirm that.
Okay, jersey aside, you get the experience. Come on, that's priceless. So
priceless. It's priceless.
And now we're gonna move. We're going east. Sorry, Winnipeg, Alberta. We're skipping you today. We didn't get any news. So if you want to be featured, you gotta send us the news.
That was Winnipeg. That was Winnipeg.
Yeah, that was Winnipeg. True. So Alberta, send us some news. AFC Fleury, send us some news there. So AUDL. Exciting stuff. Must-win matchup for Toronto. They had to win against Ottawa this past weekend, and then they have to win again this on September 4th, Saturday, and they're able to do it. It was very interesting circumstances. Ottawa broke early in the game, and then there was a lightning strike at 4-4 in the first quarter, and I was like, is this game going to happen? And it was like the game had to be played out, okay, for scheduling purposes and all that. So 2-hour delay.
Oh.
Teams trying to keep limber, but it's like it's hard to do that, right? You don't know what's going to happen. The full game actually did get played, which is really cool. Ottawa scores the first point, and you're thinking, oh man, Ottawa's going to roll in, take the W, and head to the Canada Cup final. But instead, Toronto gets all this momentum, just goes on absolute break train, as they say, and they explode and take the victory. Ottawa missing a few key players, including Nick Boucher, Matt O'Brien, Ryan Polaz, Mike Lee. They were all missing. So,
do you know why?
Some of them were just away, couldn't make it. Nick Boucher's injured, so that is one thing there. And so Toronto took out Ottawa, and kind of as we heard, it's kind of like their quarterfinal, right? Because they got to play that quarterfinal, then the semis against Ottawa again in Ottawa, and then the finals is going to be the Canada Cup if they get there. But then Sunday, this past Sunday, hot day, Montreal comes into Toronto and takes them out. The fates for both teams were kind of sealed at that point, to be honest with you. So Montreal had already sealed kind of like, quote unquote, the top seed. Toronto still needs to beat Ottawa on Saturday. So they were still playing for it. And Toronto obviously didn't want to get swept by Montreal for like the first time in ever, to get swept 4 times. And so Montreal has 2 losses, and none of them are to Toronto, which is quite interesting. So they've actually more kryptonite is Ottawa. So Montreal able to beat Toronto. Some injuries happening for Toronto in that game as well. Andrew Carroll going down, Jeff Powell, Jason Huynh. So those players are big names, World Games applicant pool, and just big features for their team. So we'll see what happens this coming Saturday. I would tune into AUDL TV. If you're in Ottawa, go to the game. I'll be there commentating. It's at TD Place, which is where the CFL takes place, their Ottawa Red Blacks. So I'm pretty excited just to be like in a professional football stadium, be in the booth, kind of like scope things out. I'm pretty excited about that. I'm not going to lie.
You'll feel like a real commentator. That's exciting.
I think so. It's not going to be on TSN or anything like that, or like Sportsnet, but it's still going to be a professional booth. So that's really, really exciting for me, just in like kind of a professional sense. I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah. Are fans allowed in that stands at that time?
Well, that's why. Yeah. That's like, so Ottawa has not had fans all season. So in their all the home games they had, 3 home games. And so they're going to have fans, and it's going to be sweet. Just kind of like that lower concourse area, or like kind of lower. They're obviously not going to fill up the upper bowl or anything, but just nice for fans to be there. And it's the biggest, like, it is the semifinals basically. Win and you're in, lose and you go, I would say golfing, but we're heading into winter soon. So, I mean, lose and you go curling or something. I don't know. So you really want to take that matchup seriously, because it's win and you're in.
Yeah. And speaking of matchups, Theo, I'd love to hear an update for what happened in Quebec at the tournament. You got the laydown, right?
I do have to lay down talk to Phil Dorval again. He's like my Quebec City informant, I think. FQU informant right there, because I was trying to figure out the schedule. It was a little confusing at first until he explained it, and then I was able to figure it out. But in Open, the pool winners there were 3 pools, and then the winners of each pool met in kind of like a round robin to determine the winner. So Manic playing Quinoa, which is like a bunch of ex-Manic and kind of Montreal players that don't want to practice, and Ensom, which is the UCI Masters team. So playing Quinoa won on tiebreaker with a team called Out, which is actually going to UCI and Ensom. So those teams were there. And then I stand corrected, Quake is actually the one who won the other pool. So it was Quake, Plan Quinoa, and Manic. And Manic went undefeated. They won by 2 points in a close round robin with Quake and Plan Quinoa. So we're not going to see Plan Quinoa at UCI, but Quake and Manic will be there. So that's pretty cool. And then Sherbrooke took 4th, defeating Ensom. Sherbrooke, another team going to UCI as well from Quebec. So we're seeing that Quebec representation there. And then on the women's side, there was no Iris there. I mentioned before they had a split squad back when they had a tournament earlier in July. Cube and I'm not sure if I'm going to get this name right. Saush, hopefully I got that right, won their pools. And Cube won the finals 15-8. So Saush is one of the women's masters teams that will be at UCI. That's coming up soon, Danie, actually, if you think about it. It's like less than a month, I'm pretty sure, from the time of this recording to masters at UCI. And then Aguada, hopefully I got that name right as well, out of Ontario, came 3rd. Also going to be at UCI. So I'm trying to give shout-outs to those teams because they're going to be there. And, they're trying to get that experience. And that's something that these Quebec teams have that I feel like these other provinces and other teams might not get the experience of. So you got to watch out for these Quebec teams. They've been practicing for longer than, at least in Ontario, a month prior to when we opened up. So I'm really excited to see how these Ontario teams do. Excuse me, Quebec teams. How the Quebec teams do.
I mean, you're probably excited to see how the Ontario teams do too.
I am because, it's my home province. But
okay.
In mixed, Epoch, my clear mixed masters pick. Epoch, they won everything and they cruised to the finals, kind of uncontested. Battleship, which is a team at UCI, lost in pool play to Loyal. And so that's what happened in mixed. Excited to see Battleship because I know they came 3rd at CUC in 2019. So I know they probably not the results they wanted, getting quote-unquote upset to Loyal there in pool play. But they're going to come out UCI with some fire. And we'll see what happens. So those are your results from, I think it's just called CQU 7. Just their grand finale. Obviously no Mephisto because Montreal Royale were playing this past weekend. So that's your news out of Quebec. And I think that's as east as we go this week, Danie, I think.
Yeah, I feel like we've talked about Quebec tournaments a lot, and now I'm getting a little nervous. We played like 2 scrimmages. Come on, Quebec, chill out a little bit.
I mean, I'd be nervous for you in the women's division because I know Iris has been getting their practice weekends in and such, and so I'd be a little nervous. I'm excited for some of these spicy matchups. And like I said, Epoch and mixed. I know some masters team, they get the reputation of not practicing, but I'm sure some of these teams are getting ramped up and are practicing and getting ready because if you're not practicing and this is your first tournament in 2 years, that might be a little bit of trouble in my opinion, even if it's a 2-day tournament.
Now you got me nervous. Okay. That was a lot of news. It was really exciting. I think the guests that we have on today are coming at a pivotal time. The stuff that they actually said in our interview with them were things that I actually said to my juniors this weekend when I was coaching them. Like, I actually already have internalized these tips and tricks that you're going to be learning from our future guests. And so we're going to head to hear from our sponsor, VC. VC, you're awesome. I'm actually currently wearing the new Team Canada kind of one-off VC jerseys from the year that never happened. So the 2020
that's limited edition, right?
Limited edition. Yes, it just came in. So we're going to hear from our sponsor, VC. They're awesome. And then you're going to be hearing from Coast to Coast Nutrition. This episode is sponsored by VC Ultimate. Now, if you know me, or you've seen me on the fields, or you've seen me coaching, you know I'm repping VC Ultimate. VC is a company that proudly puts values and company before profit. VC is the world's best source for quality, design, and all of your ultimate needs. So check out VC to get your gear now.
Hey, this is Miranda Coe, captain of the University of Waterloo women's team, and you're listening to the Huckin A podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.
All right, we're back. Main event. We got coast-to-coast nutrition in the house. Pretty excited for this segment here. So we're going to have each person introduce themselves, how they got started into ultimate and nutrition in sports. So Elsa, let's start with you with those two questions.
Hi, my name is Elsa. I am a registered dietitian in Montreal. I started playing Frisbee in third year of university at McGill because my roommate Daisy played Frisbee. And we actually did our nutrition and dietetics program together. So we actually owe both my career and sports life to her. I got started because she told me that Frisbee was really cool and that the McGill women's team was looking for more players. So in 2015, she taught me how to throw one summer, and then I tried out, and then like Frisbee, you kind of never look back. And that was a couple of years ago now.
Okay. I'm Daisy. I am a registered dietitian in Vancouver, BC, and I started playing Ultimate back in high school. So that's about 12 years now, which is a long time. I played at McGill with Elsa, literally like fastest learning student I've had. Like her learning curve was just straight up. And she really got to that top level really quick. So really proud of her. And so I played 5 years of McGill Ultimate and played one stint of U24s in Australia with Team Canada Mixed in juniors. And this year is my 5th year playing Traffic, and I play on Traffic with Danie.
Yay. You're also a ping pong star or table tennis star.
Yeah, I know.
Spike ball too,
And
apparently.
spike ball champion, might I add. We did talk about this on the podcast a few episodes ago, but you and I had the distinct pleasure of being each other's spike ball partners, and we destroyed all of Traffic.
Oh yeah, we're a good pair. The setter and the power combo.
It was sick. I can't tell Theo our moves because we're going to try to get a spike ball game going at UCI, so you can't tell him anything. It's got to be a secret. All right, we're gonna kind of dive into a little bit more of the nutrition stuff now that we have got to know you a little bit. So I'm curious how you both got interested in nutrition and nutrition in sports specifically, because they are very different. How you eat on a normal day to exist versus for sport, making sure that you're peaking and you have the right energies and you're not kind of like overdoing anything. So what was it that got you both really interested in it? And I would love to hear from Elsa first.
So what's interesting is actually Daisy and I both work with a different population in our day-to-day job. So Daisy works in a hospital setting and I work in a gym setting. And also just like a regular everyday person. I got interested in nutrition in high school because I was looking into medicine, and then I found out that there was this whole branch of medicine that was essentially nutrition based, and you could treat diseases and prevent terrible things from happening to you by something really non-invasive, something that can be fun, something that's very like lots of different dimensions to it. And then I've also always loved sports in my life. I didn't play a lot of sports, but I liked them. And it kind of went together naturally. It was kind of a side hobby. We started Coast to Coast in summer of 2020 as like we were both like, you know what if we started, because we got so many questions from all of our teammates of like, what should I eat? What should I eat? And we were like, maybe we should, instead of just telling our teammates, maybe we should tell more people. And so we started that project as a way to kind of share our knowledge. And it really grew. So I think our passion for nutrition and sport really grew with the project that we did as we put more time into it. Yeah.
It was definitely a fun COVID project to start that. And it's been fun, like maintaining the friendship between Elsa and I and having that connection too, because, we are in a long distance friendship.
Yeah.
So essentially, my interest in nutrition kind of started when I was in high school. I was vegan, so exploring the realm of food and food alternatives. And I also had a dad who was pretty obsessive with kind of health and preventative health. So that really helped me, delve into the books on preventative medicine too. And then my interest in sport nutrition specifically came from my own health issues while I was kind of becoming more active, training more for Ultimate in college. So, I mean, it's a long story, but essentially I lost my period for a year and a half, and my GP had no idea why. Like, I wasn't pregnant. And I also went through like a bunch of different tests, and there was no like medical reason why that was happening to me. But then as I learned through my courses and delved a little bit more into the research on energy availability, I kind of came across something called the female athlete triad, which is called something else now. It's called like relative energy deficiency in sport. And basically it's that imbalance between energy availability, so how much you're eating, versus energy output. So essentially I wasn't eating enough. And even in nutrition myself, like I didn't know that. So that really got me into thinking about how nutrition can support sport performance as well as kind of an athlete's health and longevity in their sport. So I was lucky enough to also intern with some of the McGill varsity athletes. So that really got me more into like the nutritional assessments and being able to support athletes to make sure that they could perform well in their sport.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that info. We're becoming like we say we can become a different podcast quite often. So now we're like a health and wellness podcast as well there, Danie. So now we're gonna ask like a practical question here. Because, we're at the time of this recording, we're about a month away from the senior division UCI tournament happening. And so, a month is a good time to maybe, if you haven't been thinking about it, to start thinking about your nutrition, because we haven't been playing in a very long time. And so let's start off with, what are some ways we can start prepping for a tournament like that, even now a month away? And then to follow up, what is like the breakfast during and post tournament, especially day one of a tournament, look like? So I know that's a very long question, but Elsa, we'll start with you again, if you could answer some of that.
Yeah, I really like what you just said there, Theo, that we're a month away, but that's enough time. It's actually essential that we're a month away, and that's just enough time. Because just like you wouldn't show up to the tournament having never touched a Frisbee or never trained before, you wouldn't show up to your biggest competition having never tried anything new in nutrition before. So it's really, really important to try out new strategies beforehand to see how you personally handle them. Not everyone will handle different foods differently. Timing's different. Every digestive system is different. So in terms of getting started, it's just exactly that. Let's get started in your day-to-day. And your day-to-day is more important than your tournament day. What you do on a daily basis matters way more than what you do on that day. Just like with training, how you train on a daily basis matters way more than how much you're running on the actual tournament day. You don't train on the tournament day. What you want on a tournament day basically is to do what works for you. And to know that, you have to already know what works for you. So on your day-to-day, you want to start with your basic healthy balanced plate. You want to make sure you're fueling every 3 to 4 hours to match your energy levels. You want to make sure that you're timing your snacks around when your training is, and you want to make sure you have the right stuff in your snack. You have the carbs and protein before and after each physical activity to get you everything that you need. We have on our Instagram, we have posts dedicated to post-workout nutrition, pre-workout nutrition, tryout nutrition, tournament nutrition. We have a lot of resources for people who are looking for something really concrete. But that's kind of a really good place to start. Is just start with your day-to-day. Start with your plate at breakfast, your plate at lunch, your plate at dinner.
Cool. Daisy, anything to add there?
Yeah, definitely. Like I echo Elsa in terms of like some pointers, I guess, or tips. We can give a few tips regarding, before your tournament, how to prep, during your tournament, what couple things to focus on, and then post day one tournament, how to refuel for the next day. So we can do a little bit of, can give some recommendations around that. In terms of before the tournament day, just knowing that your main source of fuel in terms of playing Ultimate is going to be glucose, so sugars, right? So your body stores, ready to use energy. So it stores these sugars as glycogen. So you want to really try to maximize those sugar storages before the tournament day. So a lot of people have heard about carb loading. But when people think about carb loading, they think like a massive plate of pasta and only pasta, right? That you're supposed to have the night before. But if you're not used to that volume of food and that load of carbohydrate, you're probably going to feel sick on the day of the tournament. So the basic tip is to focus on something called a hard day training plate for your meal before and for the breakfast the day of. So half your plate being starchy carbohydrates, which is going to fuel your glycogen stores. So things like rice, potato, pasta, bread, make half of your plate, that type of carbohydrate. And then, you still need some protein. So have a quarter of your plate as protein. So animal protein or plant protein, like tofu, beans, lentils, if you're a vegetarian. And then the last quarter of your plate, aim for, leafy greens or salads or some other type of cooked vegetable for your vitamins. So yeah, before, the actual tournament day, the hard day training plate.
I distinctly remember being in high school and feeling like carb loading was a permission structure for me to just like drown in Alfredo pasta and feeling like garbage after. So I wish I had listened to this as a youth, but I did hear something one time. It was like, whatever you normally eat, just add like 20% more of the carb or whatever whatever the stat was that I had heard. It was like just a little more, like don't eat nothing too crazy. So you kind of really solidified that in my brain, which I loved. And you are hitting on some misconceptions and myths, and I'm curious, I think there's lots out there. If you can think of any other misconceptions and myths around nutrition in general, or maybe for Ultimate more specifically, other than not drowning in pasta the night before.
A little bit. Continuing on a little bit about the carb loading, which is interesting too, is not a misconception, but sometimes a lot of people, I think you guys would also ask us, like, what's like the weirdest thing you've seen someone eat at a tournament? And maybe it's not that strange, but when people are eating vegetables in between games or during games, like they're munching on celery or cucumber or carrots, or somebody has kind of a salad as their lunch that day, that's a misconception that this is not an appropriate moment to be having a lot of fiber and a lot of vegetables. Because vegetables are really high in nutrients like vitamins and minerals, and we really need them. Like, of course, we need them in our everyday health. But in a tournament setting, in a physical activity setting, they're really long to digest, and they have very, very little calories, and they have very little carbs, most of the vegetables. So it's not a great time to do this. And it's not really the ideal moment to be doing this because it takes up space in our digestive system. It takes a long time to digest. When you're running around after just eating a lot of fiber, which is found in vegetables, two things will happen. You'll either keep digesting it, in which case the blood will go away from the muscles to go digest in the stomach, but more than likely, the digestive system pauses since you're moving, and then it kind of just gets you can imagine just a big clump of everything you just ate in your stomach just rolling around like a ball in there. And then people will get cramps, they'll get nauseous, they'll get bloated. That's the kind of thing we want to try to avoid. So keep it simple, things like white carbs, like white bread, bagels, white pasta, things that are easy to digest. A second point with slow digesting food, fatty foods like avocados and oils and fatty meats. These are things that we want to avoid on a tournament day because again, they take a long time to digest. So to answer your early question, Theo, of on a breakfast on a tournament day, what should I do? Well, like we said, we want a good amount of carbs, we want some protein, but we want to avoid a lot of fat. So if you're going to your usual fast food drive-through, you want to kind of avoid the like bacon, sausage, trio combo kind of thing because it takes a really long time to digest.
My favorite thing.
But you ever notice it comes back up during warm-up a little bit? You might get the burps.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good. Yeah.
It doesn't feel good, exactly. So some switches that you can do is to do a turkey sausage or to get something that's more an egg white based or an egg based to try to stay away from those really like fatty meats. That's really what's going to slow you down.
Yeah, and a lot of
what about at dinner though?
A lot
dinner
of these
the first night.
Food choices are also very individual based, right? So some people have a very high tolerance to higher fat meals or higher carb meals, and they're able to digest these types of foods quick enough to be able to fuel them. But if you are feeling like you're crashing at the end of the day, or that you don't have enough energy levels to last you the entire tournament day, you might want to reconsider what types of foods that you do choose because your digestion might be impacting the way that you're performing.
Yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Definitely seen a lot of teammates just like eating pepperoni sticks, especially on traffic. There's a lot of people that do that. I can't personally do that, but I also, when coaching kids, like I think their parents want to show that they care about their kids, so they pack them these like really healthy lunches, and then like in the email that I'm writing to these parents, I'm like, I want like Cheez-Its. Maybe not Cheez-Its is bad. It's like Triscuits, like juice, like sugar, like all the things, like simple stuff, like chips are fine, maybe depending upon the type of chip, if it's like baked or something. And they're like, what? I'm like, don't shoot the messenger. Theo, I know you have a question because this is kind of in line with you being disappointed that you maybe shouldn't eat as much fast food, but I know your snack bag isn't exactly flawless, but you have some questions, I think, for these two.
Yeah, I mean, I want to know your go-to, like, because you mentioned snack bags earlier. So what are your go-to things in your snack bag so that I could take it, Danie can use it, the audience can use it, and we can be fully ready for any tournaments coming up? So some key things in the snack bag there, because obviously we look at the food tent, but most people bring their own snacks as well. And especially with COVID, I doubt there will be field food at many tournaments that you're playing at. So you're bringing your own stuff. So tell us what you bring in there, some secret tips.
Daisy, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I really like dried fruit. So I'll bring dried fruit in my snack pack just because it is a quick source of energy for me. It's a simple sugar. I can absorb it right away and use it right away. And it's great kind of in between points, if not in between games. Something that I also really enjoy is goldfish because it's that salty snack. We need salt to replace the salt that we lose in our sweat. And so a salty snack is a really good way to get carbs in as well as replenish the sodium. I like jerky as well, kind of in line with getting that sodium content in. And it gives a little bit of protein too. So jerky is one of the ones that I put in my snack pack. And then I really like making turkey wraps because they're really easy to eat during a bye. You can wrap them up. They're salty as well to give you carbs. And they're just really convenient if you're prepared. So getting those groceries, making wraps, that's something that you can prepare easily. And then something like a flavored milk or flavored plant milk, like soy milk, that's a really great recovery beverage that I like to have to take right after the tournament day, because that's going to give me fluid, it's going to give me carbs, and it's going to give me protein in a really good proportion, in ideal proportions, essentially. So yeah, those are the couple things in my bag. I know it's like a buffet, but I do like to snack quite a bit during the day.
Yeah. Basically, to reiterate what Daisy said, we always want to look for easy carbs. We always look for a protein source that's ideally not needed to be refrigerated, because we know our coolers can only stay so cool. And then we're looking for some stuff with salt. I especially have such a salt tooth. I don't really ever crave sweet stuff, especially if it's hot. I'm not craving really anything sweet, but I always pack chocolate almonds because they're just always good. There's never a moment where I'm not craving them. Swedish fish, or this kind of like candy type things, like chewable, high sugar things. Otherwise, any type of salted cracker like Goldfish or Cheez-Its or that kind of thing. I like, when I bring my lunch out or a meal, I always like noodle-based stuff. So either noodle, like Asian noodle bowls, or pasta dishes. Those are usually great. They keep decently okay, depending on what you put on them. And they're always fun. Our team tends to have someone in each car make lunches for other, like the whole car. And so that's one that's been really popular with people I've driven with. And it's really adaptable for people with different restrictions or different eating habits. So yeah, I definitely always have those. Jerky also I love, because you don't have to keep it cold. Super high protein, high salt, really tasty. Yeah, and then the chocolate milk. I'm a big fan of chocolate milk too. When I'm able to be home, if it's a tournament, let's say in my home city, our local grocery store sells a milk by Natrel that has 18 grams of protein in either chocolate or regular milk, and that is a really bomb product, because when it's late or when you're tired and you don't feel like cooking anything, you take a glass of that, you're getting your protein, you're getting your carbs, you're good to go. You can crash into bed, no guilt. Yeah, so those are kind of some easy products that can kind of help people.
We're gonna have to take some notes here. I don't know, Danny, you probably do a lot of this stuff already, but the audience, you're gonna have to take some notes. And then in terms of hydration, you mentioned kind of post-exercise, post-tournament day, but what about during? I know some people like the Gatorade, or they like just maybe something else like a BioSteel or coconut water. What do you two do for hydration during tournaments?
That's a great question, Theo. And we could delve into hydration. It could be a whole new episode. Because there's so much misconception around hydration, as well as like inadequacy in monitoring hydration, especially when it's hot out, especially when it's humid out. Especially if there's, high elevation as well involved. And personally, I've also struggled to maintain my hydration and have gotten heat exhausted numerous times at tournaments. So essentially, we lose water in a multitude of factors, whether that's through our urine, our skin, our respiration, but also through our sweat, right? Have you guys tasted your sweat before?
Yes.
What does it taste like?
Depends on the day. If it's like a tournament day and I'm probably not drinking enough water, it's like the ocean.
Yeah, it's hella salty.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so one of the mistakes that some players make is that they're only hydrating with just water. And they're not considering kind of replacing what else they're losing through sweat, which is mostly salt and a mineral called sodium and chloride, right? So replacing this sodium can come from food. So we mentioned salty crackers, jerky, salty foods, but you can also replace it through electrolyte beverages. And something like Gatorade is great. It has a really good ratio of sodium versus potassium. And it has a little bit of sugar in it because you're going to need to top up your fuel sources, right? Some of these sugars also help with the actual hydration of your cells. So Gatorade, we give it a thumbs up. Get some of that in, 1 to 2 liters an hour of fluid replacement. And essentially what you're trying to do is make sure that your pee is light yellow. So that's kind of how you monitor your hydration. If it's dark yellow, you got to drink.
Additionally, if it's
yellow,
and if it's clear, then you're not getting the salts
Exactly.
in. So that's a sign that when it's really transparent that you haven't gotten the right nutrients in your hydration.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going, Daisy.
So if you're overhydrating with water, then your pee might be clear and you might need some electrolytes like salt to hold that water in your body.
What is your recommendation for assessing your pee when it's just porta potties and the pee is always dark?
Hard to do.
Who's going to take that question? Okay. No problem. That's fine. I just thought I would ask just in case. Thank you for that, because I do see a lot of people just chugging water only and not really snacking. Like a lot of the amount of times I've overheard from my own teammates or kids that I coach saying, I can't eat during the tournament. I can't eat during games. I can't eat between games or anything like that. And they're also just drinking water and they're wondering why they're cramping and they're wondering why their muscles are really sore the next day. And, here it is, folks. Here's the answers. I know you kind of covered this with like eating the vegetables or salads and stuff. Is there any other weird things that you've seen people eat? You're like, that is a mistake. You're going to regret that.
So I think during one of the tournaments, one of my teammates was handing out caffeine pills.
Yes, I've seen that.
Well, first of all, don't try anything new during a tournament, right? You don't know how caffeine or these, especially supplements, are going to affect your body. And especially when it's hot out, especially if you haven't eaten very much throughout the day, caffeine might actually potentially make your fatigue worse and further dehydrate you, right? So that's something that I've seen before, and I would not recommend if somebody is handing out, new products like gels or caffeine pills or supplements and stuff, and they're marketing it well. Don't take it. If you want to take it later, and try it out in practices or training camps, okay, try it out. But during a tournament, err on the side of your own food.
Yeah, whole natural foods. People who kind of peddle the sugar-free anything, we know that sugar is super, super important for sports. For the everyday person, it's less of a big deal to be sugar-free, but in a tournament setting, sugar-free stuff is not your friend if that's the only thing that you're doing. So when it comes to a lot of the other electrolyte beverages, things like Noon or things like even Pedialyte, these are things that have no sugar added because they're not meant to rehydrate you in a tournament or a frisbee setting. They're meant to rehydrate you really for those endurance sports where you're also consuming carbs. Even Pedialyte is meant for severe diarrhea in children. That's what it was designed for. We use it for adults doing physical activity, so we can't expect it to have the same effects. It's okay if you find that these really work for you, as long as you're also getting those carbs from somewhere else. But if you're a really small appetite or if you're a late eater, really try to get some kind of electrolyte supplement that you can either add carbs to, like you can add some juice to it, or that you're doing something on the side.
Yeah, I think Danie mentioned coconut water.
Leo did.
Wait, who's Leo? New host on the pod here, so
So yeah, a lot of people think coconut water is a really great hydrator. So coconut water has a ton of potassium in it, but not a lot of sodium in it. And sodium is what you're losing most of through your sweat. So unless you're getting that sodium content from elsewhere, like your food, or, you know, another salt containing electrolyte beverage, like Noon or Gatorade, coconut water isn't the best rehydrator by itself.
I didn't know that. That's a good tip.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 cup has like 600 milligrams of potassium and only like 50 milligrams of sodium. So that ratio is a little off.
And we need probably like somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 milligrams of sodium on a tournament day. So we're thinking those 50 milligrams are not taking us too close to it.
No. Okay.
Danie, you learn something new every day, and we're doing that here. But I'm here to ask the big question, because I have this question. I know for sure someone in the audience has this question as well. Is candy, fast food, okay for the ultimate athlete? Because you know people, they like to talk about how they go to Wendy's or McDonald's after a tournament or like after practice or something. So what do we think about candy, fast food? Can you talk about that? I don't know who wants to go first, but...
Go ahead, Elsa.
I have a lot of opinions about this matter.
Yeah, I know.
We're both of the belief. A lot of dietitians are of the belief that all foods fit. There is no food that is bad for you, just like there's no food that's good for you. It's all about the quantities, the timing, also the emotions you feel around that food. Any like really guilt or negativity, we don't want that to be there. So there's a time and place for everything, just like there's a positive emotion for every type of food. There are times where the purpose of eating is nutrition, and there are times where the purpose of eating is pleasure. And when the purpose of eating is pleasure, we don't really care about the nutritional value of candy or of the fast food. That's the time to be happy. Food is historic. It's been millennia that we use food as a way to bond and love and share and care about each other. And we can't just erase that because all of a sudden in the past 100 years, we started studying the nutrition of it. That doesn't erase the history behind it. So what we like to preach as dietitians is a balance. So we want most of the time, let's say 70 to 80% of the time, we want to be having whole natural foods that are found mostly in nature, things that are considered quote unquote healthier. And then maybe that 20, 30% of the time we can indulge in fast food. We can do the candy thing. We can do the ice cream thing. We can do the whatever foods that are really for pleasure that make us happy without being guilty, without worrying about it. When it comes to athletes, we want to look a little bit closer at the timing. So like we said, candy is a great thing in a tournament setting. Fast food can be a really good way to recover because they're really high calorie, high protein, high fat foods and very little vegetables. And like we saw that our hard day training plate is what that is. A big plate of fries with a burger looks pretty much like a hard day training plate. But on a regular day-to-day basis, we should try to maybe more 70, 80, 80% of the time look at the more whole natural food world than the fast food world.
Yeah. Again, depends on your individual tolerance, right? If you're going to feel super terrible having that fast food meal and like for the next day, you probably want to stick to a little bit more of a lower fat content meal, incorporating half your plate as starchy carbohydrates, a quarter plate of your protein, and a quarter plate of your vegetables. However, fast food, Michael Phelps eats a lot of fast food just because he burns so much energy, and fast food is a way to get enough energy, right? So it really depends on the person and the tolerance. And yeah, I echo Elsa in terms of timing. Those simple sugars from candy, great way for quick energy between points, getting in those carbohydrate or like replenishment for the next day. Great for bouncing back during a game. It's why like gels and gummies also exist for athletes too. They're that simple sugar that they need for performance.
You heard it here, folks. Candy is in, fast food is in. Use your discretion. Listen to your body. The part also specifically that you're saying about the judgments, good or bad labels on food really resonates with me, because I know a lot of people, when they think like, oh, I had this fast food thing, they think everything is ruined because that thing is a bad thing. And so I know you could probably talk about this again for hours and hours and hours, but if you're listening to this and you are the type of person that judges good or bad, that this is kind of like for you, because learning when and how to use these foods is just like a really important tool to have in your toolkit. And you can probably learn more about nutrition from these two. I heard that you both have a webinar coming up. Do you want to explain to the Huckin world what that webinar is about? When is it? And everything like that. I don't know who I want to ask first. Whoever puts up their hand first. Elsa, yes.
That was so slow. Yes, we are doing a webinar to fundraise for our teams, Iris and Traffic, and for a charity called the Growing Chefs Initiative out of Vancouver that helps educate children and chefs in the world of nutrition and good food. So we are doing this webinar September 14th at 5 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. Eastern time. I think that's right. Yeah. And we will be talking about, it's called the Ultimate Fueling Plan. We'll be talking about basically what you heard a little bit about today, but maybe some more practical tips, how to fuel your day, how to structure your workout nutrition, how to make your plate healthy, all about hydration. We're going to touch on a bunch of stuff. It's only 30 minutes, so even the short attention span people, which is most of us, we can get that done. And then we have a 10-minute segment at the end for any questions that I'm sure we're going to get. We can explore more of that. We're also sponsored by Be Ultimate for that one. And for other, if people have more questions that any of the resources that we talk about online don't answer, we created a really multiple page document through Be Ultimate called the Fuel Guide that gives you super detailed advice about everything we talked about today: hydration, tournaments, everyday workout nutrition, all that stuff is in there, as well as our Instagram also has a bunch of resources on there. So that's kind of like our big, this is everything that we do so far that is on the internet.
It says 5:30 PST, 8:30 EST. I just wanted to make sure I said that.
Yes, I forgot
September
that
14th.
I have a job that I work until 8:30. So yes, it will be at 5:30/8:30.
Yes. Daisy, do you have anything you want to add to that, or do you think that covered it?
Yeah, pretty much that covered it. If you have anybody you think would benefit from taking a closer look at their nutrition. So, people who get injured often, people who crash at the end of a tournament, people who are very, very sore for weeks after a tournament.
People who get sick. Yeah, people get really sick often.
Get sick, often, so respiratory illnesses. Essentially, anybody you think that would benefit, send the link to the webinar over. It's only 30 minutes. You'll get some nice pictures. You'll get a handout. And
we also, you will be entered in to win a one-on-one consultation and nutrition plan with either Daisy or me. We'll give away one with each of us. So anybody who enters can win that, which is, if you did it just by yourself, it would be around a $200 value. Or $250 value each. So really, really worth it. Really, really worth getting that personal accountability and time.
Yeah. Because I don't know if you heard us emphasize this, but nutrition is so individualized, depending on your tolerance to foods, if you have any allergies, if you have any food restrictions too, like your cultural preferences. Definitely a very individualized sort of thing to look at in terms of planning.
Wow. I will definitely be tuning into that. If you're listening to this, I hope to see you there as well, because we're only scratching the surface here. There's a lot to learn from these two. You have a wealth of knowledge that is super valuable to the Ultimate community. So I know from Leo and I...
I'm so sorry,
Theo.
Oh man, that's gold.
I love it. No, I love it. From Theo and I, we're really grateful to have you both on, especially now because we have Masters UCI coming up. We've got Senior UCI coming up. There's prospect camps happening all over the country. So it couldn't be more appropriate and perfect timing to be diving into these topics. So yeah, we really appreciate both you and your time to the community. So thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
both
for having
for
us.
this.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Before we sign off though, Theo, I am curious. We got a lot of wisdom dropped on us today about nutrition. What were some things that stuck out to you?
I think the one of the things that was said is about the timing and sort of like the purpose of the food that you eat. So obviously everyone can in the audience say vegetables are good for you, but vegetables might not be the best thing, as I believe it was Elsa who said it, like might not be the best thing at that moment in a tournament to like be snacking on carrot sticks and like having a ton of fiber like that. So and just like empty calories, like you're not getting like full like calories or carbs in your system. So bagels, it's all good. Eat your bagels, but obviously don't eat till like you're like feeling bloated. But it's like eat some of those things. I know I like to snack on that trail mix and get a little bit of that energy in, but whatever you need to get that energy, I thought that was really cool. And they're not saying don't eat vegetables. It's just eat at the right time and you'll be okay. And knowing your body too, I think as someone who did a marathon back in, what was it? Yeah, 2020, I guess. And just like trying, I was told not to try anything new on the run. So whatever you eat normally, like for breakfast, eat that. Whatever you eat for like runs, eat that. Like don't change anything because your stomach might do some weird stuff. So same thing for ultimate. Like if you're going to a tournament, don't eat anything weird or things that you're not used to. Like if someone hands you something, like the gels that were mentioned, if you don't eat gels, maybe don't have it because your body might just like do something funny in the finals and you have to go to the washroom or something. You don't want that.
You don't want that. I mean, yeah, I think like whoops, my camera. Sorry. The like food judgment thing was also kind of what stuck out for me. So like labeling things good or bad, or like if you eat this thing, you're a bad person. And that really struck me. And that is something that I think a lot of people do kind of suffer through, is labeling themselves like a lazy person or a bad person or an unhealthy person or a non-athletic person because they had candy or something like that. And so it's just so funny because when I was coaching this weekend, kids are all sitting under the tent and I was like, put sugar in your face. And like all the parents are like laughing. The kids are like, sour keys. Yes. And I'm like, have two. Because like, yeah, like they would literally eat a bucket.
Yeah. And Danie, I know you're not saying this as a U20 coach. You're not saying and advocating, hey, shove like a bag full of sour keys in your system. But in between points, if you need a little bit of energy and you're feeling down, like I use the running gels personally, like Cliff Bar gels. Like I like those. If you don't like those, that's fine. Grab a couple sour keys, eat on those. But you don't need to eat, and everyone's done this before, I'm certain of it. Eat yourself into like a candy coma where you're feeling sick. You definitely don't want to be doing that. But a little couple in there for some energy, that's okay.
Yeah, so learned a lot. I'm excited to try out some new things. Like I had a turkey wrap by Daisy's suggestion during my training weekend with traffic, and so
how did that go?
It's that great. So I think that's my new thing. And so if you got some value out of this, please hit up Coast to Coast Nutrition as well. Give them a like, share, follow, all of that good stuff. They're doing the good work for us ultimate players, keeping us healthy, keeping us cramp free out there. So hope you liked the episode, and we will see you next week. We're going to be doing a preview of the AUDL Canada Cup. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about breaking down those games and kind of seeing who we think is going to come out on top. And if you have any news related stuff for UCI, both Masters and the senior division, please let us know. We would love to shout out your team.
Yeah, send us an email, hucking@ultiworld.com. This is where I start the pitch. Like the video, subscribe to Ultiworld, do all those things, both on YouTube and also the actual subscription. And follow us on Instagram. We're close to 500 followers. It's just a cool number to hit, so help us get there, please. That would be cool. And don't forget, fill out those picks, win a prize, and also just challenge yourself to see if you can pick Team Canada World Games. That's pretty cool. So once again, for Danie Proby, Theo Wan here, we're signing off. We'll see you next time.
This is Dave from Alberta Flatball Club, and you're listening to the Huckin A podcast, your coast-to-coast guide for all things Canadian Ultimate.